All right, guys, for our second learning target, we're going to be talking about order of operations. And this is something that I'm sure you have heard of before. You've probably remember seeing it in middle school. We usually think of it as being GEMDAS, or maybe sometimes you learned it with a P, PEMDAS. But it tells us the order in which we can do multiple operations. So, for example, if we see, let me see if I can get this thing out of the way. Here, maybe I can minimize it. There we go. If we see, for example, 4 plus 2 times 7, that's more than one operation. So how do I know what to do first? Do I do the 4 plus 2 or do I do the 2 times 7? And here's why it matters. If student A decides to do the addition first, he will get 6 times 7, which is 42. If student B decides to do the multiplication first, he will get 4 plus 14, which is 18. And these answers are obviously completely different. So order of operations was established to make sure that everybody always did the operations in the same order so that everyone would always get the same answer. So think for a second in your head of what the G stands for. If you said grouping symbols, you were correct. Now we're going to be very, very basic with our grouping symbols. We are going to mainly talk about parentheses right now. Think about for a second, what does the E stand for? If you said exponents, you were correct. In this video, we're not going to talk about exponents, but we will get to those later. Think about the M and the D. If you said multiplication and division, you're right. But here is the kicker. They have to be done from left to right, whichever one comes first. So if it's multiply and then divide, you do the multiplication first. If it's divide and then multiply, you do the division first. Whichever one comes first is the one that you do first. And then how about A and S? If you said addition and subtraction, you are right. And again, they have to be done from left to right. A lot of kids think that just because the M is first in GEMDAS means you always multiply first. Not true. A lot of kids think because the A comes first before the S in GEMDAS, that means that you always add first. But again, not true. If it's add and then subtract, you would add first. If it's subtract and then add, you would subtract first. It's always going from left to right. So let me show you some example problems that we're going to work more with this week on Thursday and Friday. So if you're going to go in order of GEMDAS, the first thing you do is look for grouping symbols. And I have grouping symbols right here, which are the parentheses. 1 minus 1 is 0. Then I would copy very carefully the rest of the problem. Now in this case, a dot means multiply. I'm sure you already know that. As we get in later through the year, we will probably never again use dots for multiplication. We'll always use parentheses because dots tend to look like decimals. But for today, that's what we're going to go with. Now, the grouping symbols are gone. There's no exponent. There is multiplication and there is division. There's multiplication here, and there's division here. So since all three operations are covered right here, we're going to go from left to right. 0 times 2 is 0. 0 times 9 is 0. And 0 divided by 2 is 0. If you have nothing and you divide it in half, you just have 2 nothings. All right, so there's our first example. Second one, I see grouping symbols right here. It doesn't matter that they're in the middle, they go first. So we're going to have to do what's inside the parentheses first. 8 minus 3 is 5. Very carefully copy the rest of the problem. No exponent. We do have multiplication right here. And we have subtraction right here. Well, if we're going from left to right, we're going to do the multiplication first. So that goes here. 5 times 0 is 0. And then 6 minus nothing is 6. Okay. Our third example. We've got our grouping symbols right here. 3 times 1 is 3. Carefully copy the rest of the problem. And then we have no exponent, no multiplication, no division, but we do have both addition and subtraction. So we're going to go from left to right. That means the addition is going to be first. and 10 minus 3 is 7. There's our answer. Our next example, we have grouping symbols. 3 minus 3 is 0. Carefully copy the rest of the problem. No exponent. We do have multiplication, and we do have addition. So if we go in order, we have to do the multiplication first. So that's 42. And 42 plus 0 is 42. Couple more examples. Here's our grouping symbol. 6 minus 6 is 0. Carefully bring down the rest of the problem. No exponent. We do have multiplication right here, the 0 times 8. No division, but we do have addition, actually 2 of them right here. No subtraction. So we have to do the multiplication first. 0 times 8 is 0. Keep the 8, keep the plus, keep the 5, keep the other plus. Now, since all we have is addition, we're just going to add straight across. 8 plus 5 is 13, and 13 plus 0 is 13. Let's look at a couple that have division. First thing I see is the grouping symbols right here. 1 times 9 is 9. Carefully bring down all the operations and numbers that you haven't used yet. No exponent, no multiplying. We do have division, and we have 2 of them. Remember, we have to work from left to right. So this division is going to be first. 9 divided by 9 is 1. Now we're going to do the second division. We're going to jump to the back. Then we can do our final subtraction, and our answer would be 0. Okay. Here's one where we have grouping symbols with 2 things inside. Well, when the 2 things are inside together, you have to determine which one comes first. I have multiplication and I have subtraction. Multiplication comes before subtraction. So even though this multiplication is on the outside, we have to do what's in the grouping symbol first. Now, 8 times 8 is 64. I'm going to keep the parentheses because I'm not done yet. There's still something else inside the parentheses that hasn't been done. So in this case, the parentheses needs to stay, which means that I have to do this subtraction before that multiplication because I'm not quite done with my grouping symbols yet. You have to do everything inside the grouping symbol before you can go outside. So 64 minus 2 is 62. Now I can multiply right here. 2 times 62 is 124. I think I did that right. Yeah. Okay. Be careful of multiple operations inside the parentheses. And, oh, that was the last one. That was the most complicated one. So if you need to go back and rewind and review again, go ahead and watch all of these again. This is as difficult as they're going to get right now. All right. So hopefully you'll be ready on Thursday and Friday to do some practice problems with me.